Why does everyone hate JAX? He seems to be a very complex character in the digital circus, but not in a good way, and while he was never claimed to be a good person, the show's fans grew to like him after episode 1, even if he was mean to everyone, but he wasn't necessarily evil. But now that episode 2 released and we got to see more of his personality, fans are being shocked by what he actually does. But honestly, it makes sense that we're learning more about him slowly, and Gooseworks recently had a tweet where she said only the strong JAX fans will survive the show, which makes me think that he's going to be a character that will divide the fandom the most throughout all the season by his controversial acts and what he'll do. But while being trapped in a video game would probably bring out the worst in all of us, if we were in the same situation, we can see how JAX differs from all the other circus members. And not because of how he copes, but he genuinely seems to be a troubled person, just like how Gooseworks said it. And JAX was introduced in episode 1 as a mean prankster, but we didn't get to see too much of his evil side just yet. And of course, it could be for different reasons. For example, they were on an in-house adventure, so we won't necessarily see everything that's too bad, but we still did see some questionable things about JAX, which foreshadowed how his character really is. And in episode 2, we saw how his actions got a lot worse compared to how they were in episode 1. And if we're looking at this tendency, then we can expect him to get much worse with time. But he probably wasn't the friendliest even when he spawned in the circus, because there has to be a reason why nobody out of the current circus members likes him right now. We saw how he was with Gangle throughout episode 1, where he stepped on her broken mask and pushed her over in the gloink hole, but he also called Kinger crazy and made Ragatha angry when he admitted that he put centipedes in her room, so it makes sense that the circus members don't really like him. But I think why people still sympathized with JAX is that despite these clearly mean acts, the fans could somewhat understand that maybe this is how JAX is dealing with the situation that he's trapped in the video game of the amazing digital circus. And it makes sense, because abstracting does seem like a painful experience, and he's probably trying to stay sane by occupying his mind with these pranks, or at least that's what I thought they were, by always picking on others. But I think that this is not the only reason. JAX seems like he's being evil just for the sake of being evil, and now that he can basically do anything in the circus because the characters can't really be harmed or killed except for maybe abstracting, is that JAX is acting on his feelings. That may be something he couldn't do in his human form, because obviously if we all acted out our feelings, the whole world would turn into Armageddon, and that's why when JAX joined the game, now he doesn't care at all, and he just lets his feelings run rampant, and he does whatever he feels like doing. And maybe that's why Gooseworks said he deserves to be in there the most. And JAX sometimes acts like he's above everyone, even Kane, because if you remember back to episode 1, after Pomley spawned in, JAX was the first one who addressed the fact that a new person joined, and he was showing his attitude off by saying,
Kane, is this one of your NPCs or is this a new sucker? Because if it's a new character, we're gonna have to redo this whole theme song.
And it's interesting because he seems like the character that does things only if he benefits from it, or otherwise he's indifferent, just like how we saw him during the adventures, and especially in the Candy Carrier Chaos adventure. He was whining about being bored because the adventure was lacking violence and blood. But if we think about how Zooble just said no to the adventure, maybe JAX can just say no to the adventure as well and Kane would bring him back? Maybe? But then again, in the back rooms, you know, Pomni and Gummy Goo were not supposed to be down there, so who knows? Maybe you can get out of an adventure, maybe you can't. Maybe as soon as you say yes, you're stuck in it, which is why Zooble just says no all the time. Or at least that's what we saw in episode 1 and 2. But during the adventure, JAX tried to spice things up all the time, just like when he threw Pomni out of the truck, and then he said to Gangle that she should make their truck and Gummy Goo's truck ram into each other, which in my opinion is still pretty bad, but it didn't seem to satisfy JAX. And it also became clear that JAX wants to cause chaos, just like how we saw in episode 2 when the characters finished their adventure and went back to the princess. JAX was disappointed that nothing exciting, for him at least, happened. But after he realized that his plan worked and the chocolate fudge monster could enter the kingdom with the stolen key and could continue eating the residents of the kingdom, he immediately had an ear-to-ear smile on his face. And this is evil, of course, but if you think back to episode 1, he might have done the same there as well, because when Ragatha said to Palmney that they should go check on Kaufmo and she could introduce Palmney to him, Jax wanted to join them instead of going with the others to the Gloink hole. And if we go on the assumption that Jax only cares about something he can benefit from, then we could theorize that maybe Jax knew that Kaufmo had abstracted and he thought that he'd want to see Palmney's reaction. Because think about it, Jax had a key to Kaufmo's room and his bowling ball was also in his room, meaning that he must have been there not too long ago. And if he knew that Kaufmo turned into an abstracted monster, or at least was on the edge, and still decided to open his door and release Kaufmo out into the circus, then that's just cruel. But when he opened the door, he did seem surprised, so maybe he wasn't aware that Kaufmo abstracted, but he still ran away as fast as he could, leaving back Ragatha and Palmney. And Palmney didn't even know anything about abstraction at all. She just saw a giant horse monster with many eyes that looks like it wants to eat her for breakfast. And there must be something about Jax and his keys, because he had the keys to Kaufmo's room, and in episode 2, he stole the key from Ragatha that the princess gave to her, and he used it to unlock the gate so that the fudge monster could go inside the castle and then just kill the citizens. And we could see how Jax actually related to the fudge monster when the fudge monster shared about how he was exiled from the kingdom. Princess Lululalu sent him away after he ate the citizens in the kingdom, and he said that he couldn't help it because they were delicious. And Jax seemed to sympathize with him. Maybe the fudge monster doesn't know that his acts are evil because he's an NPC, but Jax is definitely not an NPC, unless he is, which is a long shot, and I did make a theory on it, but I think it's a long shot and I think he's human. But there was also an interesting scene toward the end of the episode where the characters were telling Palmney about the funerals they have when someone abstracts, and Ragatha told Palmney that they're having a funeral for these individuals who abstract, and Kinger said that it's the least that they can do. And there we could see Jax getting a bit emotional, and maybe it's because of Kaufmo. We don't really know much about him because we couldn't hear the circus members' speeches at the funeral, but maybe it's possible that Kaufmo was the only circus member who liked Jax, and now Jax lost the only person who cared about him. He may have gotten a bit emotional. Or it is also possible that the funeral made him think about how it would be if he abstracted. I think he realizes that nobody really likes him, and so maybe he thought that they wouldn't hold a funeral for him, and that's what made Jax sad, because it seemed to be that everyone fake laughed at Kaufmo's jokes, and now they're holding a funeral for him. However, even if the other circus members didn't particularly like him, we could see that they still cared about him. Ragatha tried to cheer him up when he was sitting alone, and Gangle also asked him why he was disappointed in the adventure. So maybe it is possible that Jax is aware about how badly he acts, but he can't force himself to change his behavior until a traumatic event could happen to Jax and be that thing that he needs to change his ways. But we do know that the next episodes will focus on the characters and their development, at least hopefully they do. Maybe Gooseworks was joking when she said that each episode will focus on a character, and the next episode from Gooseworks will be the Zooble episode. So hopefully we'll learn more about the characters and how Zooble interacts with Jax, and hopefully Jax will have some character development in the season and he'll become a better person. So even though right now he is extremely hated because of the evil things he's done, I think that there's always time, no matter what, for Jax to change from his ways and hopefully go to being good, because then he will be my favorite character. Not only would he be good, but he did it from a hard starting point. But let me know what you think about Jax down in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on this video here.